Sunday, September 3, 2023, Dan Grider, probable cause. I'm up in New Jersey. This is what I've always wanted to go visit after the fact. This plane crash is a Cessna 414 almost 4 years ago. I'm here. I've always wanted to go visit this, and I have. This is as close as I'm going to get to it. I'm going to respect the privacy of the people who are still there. The people living in the house today are the same people that were there when this crash happened. It's the 414 in New Jersey from 4 years ago. I'm not going to show their new house and the neighborhood, but I can tell you it's all been reconstructed. Everything is good. Fortunately, nobody was in that house at the time that it happened. Lots of children in this neighborhood. Homes, children's, nice neighborhood in New Jersey. I'm very thankful that nothing happened here. But let's talk about the main thing here. What caused this? Took 2.5 years for the NTSB to report this NTSB report. 2.5 years. What's the bottom line? I'm going to let you guess about that while I go on to the next one, and I'll cover that in just a second. I still have to get back to Atlanta tonight to produce my show and pick out a banjo song and get a video up and on the air by 9:30 tonight. And I'm in New Jersey, so it's going to be a stretch. Just a few houses down here. You were here when this airplane hit.
Yes, I was.
What did it sound like?
It sounded like a tree hit my house, but I would say it sounded like a railroad train. Quite frankly, it was really, really loud. Yeah, and it was like mid-morning or something when it happened? Yeah, about that, 11:30 maybe.
Yeah, and did you ever follow through, and did you ever hear what actually caused it after that? It's been almost 4 years ago.
Yeah, it seems much earlier than that.
Yeah,
but, yeah. No, I really didn't follow up too much, other than the information I got from a friend of mine who was a pilot, that he was a seasoned pilot.
Right. On August 13th of 2023, this year, the MiG crash in Ypsilanti, Willow Run. A couple things here. I got the NTSB report on this, and both Scott Purdue, Flywire, have done a video on it. So does CW Lemoyne and a couple others out here. Scott Purdue's video had an actual interview with the backseat guy from this MiG crash. And here's a couple things. I don't know. I'm not an experimental guy. I'm not a jet fighter guy. I'm not experimental aircraft guy. Some things on this thing still don't make any sense to me. I'm going to throw it out to you for your opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion on it. This MiG was a single-seat MiG. The NTSB report says that it is a pilot-rated observer. Now, what does that mean, pilot-rated? It means the guy was a pilot. Turns out he actually does fly for a commercial airliner. He's a pilot. He does have some experience. Here's his flight credentials on the screen here. He does have an L39 experimental FAA letter of authorization, kind of like a type rating or something like that. So here's his. Now, Dan, the guy in the front seat, has an actual MiG-23 stamped on his pilot's license. I cannot confirm whether or not Mark, the guy in the back seat, the backseater, was actually PIC rated in the MiG when it happened. I'm leaning towards no, he was not. NTSB says he's a pilot rated observer. That means he's not required. Now, Scott Purdue's video, I'm going to talk very carefully about this. Scott Purdue's video says that a backseater is an integral part of the crew. That's true in the military. The backseater is an integral part of the crew. Part 91 at air shows, a backseater is not even required, and since he's not rated, he should not have command authority to pull that handle. I'm thinking, this is my, you're gonna hate me for this. If you launch a Russian experimental aircraft over populated, high densely populated areas where the civilian public can get killed, you have to stay with your aircraft long enough for that aircraft to be guided towards an open area and be 100% assured that it's not going to hit anything. When Mark pulled those handles, number one, he was over water, which looked very tempting. A parachute ride onto land for this thing would hurt and probably hurt you bad. A parachute ride into the water looked very tempting. Mark pulled those handles, and Dan, the front seater, was not ready and was not aware. I don't like it. I can tell you right now, I don't like it. This is not the military. He was not an integral part of the crew. He was an observer, and an observer only. The fact that it missed that apartment building is pure dumb luck. You air shows out there, I think the policy ought to be no observers, no riders, no passengers. You fly your air show, you fly it clean, single seat. If you have to have a second crew member, they need to be rated, briefed. You need to figure out this ejection thing. Leaving that missile of a MiG pointed towards schools, playgrounds. There's children everywhere out here. The fact that that MiG did not hit anything is just pure dumb luck. That's my opinion. I know you won't like it, but I'm not liking any part of it. Go watch the interview on Scott Purdue's Flywire channel. You can see how much Mark is placing emphasis on his own life. And later in the interview, he talks about 4 hours later, he finally figured out that nobody on the ground got hurt. That tells me when he pulled the handle, he didn't know if anybody on the ground was going to get hurt or not. Your job as pilot, when you sign up to go do that, your job is to make sure your MiG-23 does not end up in an apartment where 100 people could have easily been killed, just like Sacramento. You know, the guy in Sacramento from 30 years ago that ended up in that ice cream parlor, that guy ended up living, and I didn't know that, but he ended up living, and then several years later, he ended up committing suicide because of all the people, the innocent people on the ground that he killed. It's a big deal. I want to go over one more thing here, and that is the Alaska crash, Alaska 1288. That happened 7 days later. That was August 2023, and I'm going to read a quote here from a guy named Ross Amer made a quote in CBS here, and it says, KCAL News spoke to Captain Ross Amer, a retired pilot and aviation expert who believes the pilots had no idea how hard the landing was going to be. Obviously not. They didn't know it was going to be this hard, otherwise they would have gone around. So the Alaska thing, yes, it was a hard landing. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the hard landing cause the gear to fail, or did the gear failing cause the hard landing? I think it was definitely a hard landing. I got some graphics I'm going to show you on the screen here right now. These graphics are showing you the threshold crossing height on this thing is abnormally high. They came in very, very low. I went through frame by frame on video and figured out their threshold crossing height when they crossed the actual threshold was very, very low. The other thing I'm talking about is FOQA data. FOQA data was Flight Operations Quality Assurance data. That is not available to the public. Anything that you've heard out there about FOQA data being available, showing that it was a nice landing and the crew did everything right, that's a complete lie. You can't get FOQA data, and the NTSB has not put out a preliminary on this thing, has not told us. I'll be waiting to see what the actual flight data recorder says, not FOQA. I want to see what the FDR data says on this thing, and any social media post that you're seeing out there saying that FOQA data is out is a complete lie. It is not, and those people should not be posting that erroneous type of information. I think this airplane hit early, it hit hard. I'm going to go out on a limb and make a prediction. I think the hard landing was probably 1.7, 1.8, 1.9 Gs. I don't know, but I'm hoping the FDR data is going to tell us what the actual G load is. That landing gear is designed to fail upward, and it did its job, but we'll see. Is it possible that I'm wrong? It's entirely possible that this was a smooth landing and everything was totally fine. I don't see it, but let's just wait and see what the FDR data says. There is no FOQA data, and we're going to talk about Alaska 1288 when it comes out. Now, for the time being, I've got to get back to Atlanta. I do have a video coming out Tuesday night, an important one. I want you to watch tonight's video all the way to the very end. This is a very important thing about general aviation, our future, our freedoms to fly. I want you to watch this all the way to the end, and then watch for, I've got a special feature video coming out Tuesday night on this channel concerning AOPA and the entire function here. I'm not hell-bent on destroying AOPA. There's some corruption, there's some bad things, and there's some misprioritization. There is obviously some conflict of interest going on right now today at AOPA. I want your opinion. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you the data. All that comes out Tuesday night. We have a huge problem, and it's not getting any better. If we don't fix this general aviation fatal accident rate and our insurance rate in the hard aviation insurance market, all of you people are going to be priced out of the ability to fly, and that's all there is to it. I think we should address it. I think we should put it on the table. Watch for that video Tuesday night. All right, so here's the conclusion on the 414 crash. It's in the report. I've got the NTSB report. Conclusion is 76-year-old pilot flew too slow. He got distracted. He was on the approach. He flew too slow. ATC tried to give him a low altitude alert by saying, state your weather conditions. Wanted to know what he's seeing and why it's so low. They should have said check altitude immediately, check altitude immediately. They wasted 3 of those opportunities. They finally, at the very last second, said check your altitude, but it was too late. He was already fully stalled when that happened. This airplane hit due to DMMS, lack of speed awareness. No doubt he got distracted, somehow let his airplane get too slow. There was nothing wrong with the engine's propeller. You know, the NTSB left the site. Everything was done in the excavation process of getting this house cleaned up and building a new house. They found the right wing buried in the backyard, was still there, that never did get recovered. That's how much debris was there. This airplane is a lack of speed awareness. It's an AQP maneuver. He got slow. He definitely allowed the airplane to stall. The airplane hit inverted, full stall, half-turn spin right into this home. Lots and lots of families and children in this neighborhood. Thankfully, nobody was home when this airplane hit, and we could go on from there. That's all we got. I'm gonna get this video up and on the air. Watch for this video that comes out Tuesday night, and I gotta get back to Atlanta, pick out a banjo song and get this thing going here for tonight's video, which starts right about now. That's right, that's me on banjo. I had to come up with some alternate music. I kind of got pinged last week. So last week's video, they put ads everywhere, and I am sorry. I used that tune. I recorded it as a cover, and YouTube kept 100% of the money. I don't get any money off that, and I apologize that you guys had to suffer through advertising. This one should be totally fine. If you listen to the banjo on this thing right here, that's me. And I'll put this tune at the very end of this thing. I appreciate you hanging with us here. It's Sunday night, September 3, 2023. Glad to have you with us. If you're checking in our live chat room, it's always interesting. Type me a quick note, say hi. I'll try to respond if I can. And let me know where you're typing from in your mom's basement. And send me some pictures of your mom if it's okay. Nah, just kidding. Don't do that. But let me know what you're eating down there in the basement, because I know all you basement keyboard warriors love to sit down there and spill crumbs and type on your keyboards. That's what you do. You're here for the drama. It's September 3. Tomorrow is September 4th. I've gotten a lot of hate mail, specifically off the AOPA thing. My hate mail has never been stronger. AOPA and the Dan Millican AOPA thing, they absolutely caused a tremendous amount of fresh hatreds towards my effort. My effort, if you want to follow the money, that's the saying people always say, if you want to know what the problem is or what's really causing this, just follow the money. I'm going to give you all of that information at the very end of this. Some of you have said that you don't want any of the drama, you don't want the information, you don't want that stuff, and that's fine. I'm going to put this information at the very end of it, but I've got some specific information that you've got to hear concerning this, and it is important because if you follow the money, this is what's affecting safety. This is what's affecting our ability to fly and our freedom to fly going forward. There is some things that I very much question, have always questioned concerning AOPA and the entire thing. That battle has been long running and hard fought by me. It's just one of my many battles, and I'm going to tell you about it, and I want you to come to your own conclusion. Hear me out, hear it to the very end. I know some of you have said just give us the AQP and leave us alone with that, and that's fine. I'll do the AQP stuff right now, and I'll save all that information for the very end. AQP, it's not my idea. I didn't invent it. I'm not selling it, and I don't have anything to sell you. AQP says that once you get your pilot's license, there are specific scenarios that are going to happen to you that you've never thought about. If you're encountered with shock and surprise and you're not prepared for it, you're probably going to die. I am probably a little bit too brutal and too bloody in telling you that, but I want you to know, if you've got kids, grandkids, aunts, uncles, sisters, brother-in-laws, and all that kind of stuff that are flying, if you have anyone that you care that is flying, they should take a little bit of time for the free education to educate themselves on what are the scenarios that are going to happen to them once they get their pilot's license. Guess what? They're all the same. They don't ever change. And I want to take a look at this NTSB thing here. NTSB is almost making a joke. From the NTSB newsroom, here's today's crash. They don't refer to it as a crash this week or that kind of a thing. They say, here's today's crash. They're almost daily. The general aviation fatal accident rate is crazy. We're bending airplanes, crashing airplanes, and killing people at an atrocious rate, and it's all unnecessary. I want you to know that out of the tens of thousands of general aviation fatal accidents that have been investigated over the last 10 or 15 years, only about 10 or 11 actual recommendations have come from the NTSB. We're not making any changes. FAA doesn't make any changes. NTSB doesn't offer any recommendations. The whole thing, I have to wonder, why are we spinning our wheels? AQP, it's voluntary. I know you hate me, but I'm going to continue to tell you about it, and I'm going to continue to show you what you need to do in your airplane. I'm not telling you that I'm better than you or that I don't make mistakes, because I do. I make mistakes while flying. I try to own up to those mistakes and let you know exactly what happened. In all flying, let's take a look at what happened in these things and try to learn from it and be better. That's what AQP is. It's figuring out what happened, building a scenario, and turning your training into conditioning pilots to be able to respond properly in the time of crisis. That is AQP for general aviation. Just a quick scheduling thing. I want to remind you that we'll be at Triple Tree September 21, 22, 23. Lots of cool airplanes that I'll be flying in. I'll be doing a little bit of flying there, but I'm there mostly to hang around and play my banjo. We're doing 2 evening functions at our campsite. They're free. They're simply at our campsite. I'll publish where we're going to be. They're totally free to attend. Those evenings at Friday night and Saturday night at Triple Tree. We'll be at the dinner. There's a dinner up there on the hill both Friday night and Saturday night. I'm definitely going to both of those because their food is really good. Triple Tree, here's the website for it. Triple Tree, I hope to see you there. And also, I'll be hanging around the campsite. I'll publish the hours that I'll be hanging around. If you'd like to come by and visit and talk about AQP, general aviation you're flying, and how we can help you better be more prepared for AQP and for the scenarios that are going to happen to you, I'd be glad to talk to you at Triple Tree, September 21, 22, 23. If you've never heard of Triple Tree, it's about an 8,000-foot grass runway. And guess what? There's no air show. There's no jets. There's nothing. There's no overhead air show. There's no noise. It's just cool people. It's got a river that runs through it. It's antique airplanes. It's experimental airplanes. It's little airplanes and little airplane flyers. It's my kind of people, and I truly enjoy Triple Tree. Excellent food, excellent camping facilities, excellent shower, bunkhouse, not bunkhouse, but excellent shower house, restrooms and public, all that kind of stuff. Totally good. My friend Pat runs the place. A big shout out to Pat for maintaining this thing and keeping it going and cutting the grass. Pat, I don't know how you cut the grass up there because it is a lot of grass, but Pat's going to come by and speak to us and say hi. Both Friday and Saturday night, he called me and promised me he'd swing by and take the microphone for just a minute to say hi. I hope you'll join us at Triple Tree. The next thing I want to talk about is these things. My friend Larry Gilman, I don't know who he is, but some guy in America found these things online. I think it's a great idea. What these are is the same thing that the airlines have. If you're flying in your airplane and your cell phone or your iPad catches fire, it's a huge problem because you don't have any place to put it. These things, you can buy them online for about 10 bucks. And before you fly, if you've got a phone, power it off and put it in here. And this is called a LiPo, which is lithium PO, I don't know what PO, lithium poly something, but these bags are fireproof and they're sealed. This is your best protection, I think, for general aviation. I'm going to put the screen thing up here. I think you can get them from Amazon for about 10 bucks. I think you can get them from several sources, but they come in a package. They come in several different sizes. I'm carrying one of these in every airplane from now on for at least every device that I have, which basically for me, I'll never be able to find my cell phone now. It's in here. For every device I carry, I'm going to carry one of these LiPo pads in the aircraft and be ready for it. I don't have my stuff on when I'm flying for the most part, except for a phone. After takeoff, sometimes I'll pull out a phone and text once I get to cruise and things like that. These things are really good. LiPo packages to prevent iPhone runaway fires in flight. I'm going to cover a couple things before I get to all the GA stuff. You know, you saw the helicopter crash in Florida, the fire rescue EMS chopper that took off. It took off headed west. The destination that they were going to was straight west. I'm going to put this graphic up here because you can see, I'm going to put this up here where you can see this is the point where they turned left. Their priority, the pilot of this thing, his priority was to get this bird back on the ground, which I take exception to. I know he was trying to do the very best he could, but remember, there's 3 things in flying. There's land as soon as possible, land as soon as practicable, and land immediately. If you have a fire in a helicopter, especially back there by the tail, this rear engine gets very hot. If you've got a fire, if you've got anything abnormal, you're to land immediately. where this guy was over the road, parkway, golf course, anything. He could have chopped the power, auto-rotated, and landed almost anywhere right there and saved killing the person in the apartment. I built a graphic to show you so you can see where he was, what his track was. I'm not dinging the guy because I know he made a mistake and I know he feels terrible about it, but let's all take a lesson to learn from this. Sometimes you're in a condition of land immediately. Whatever's ahead of you that you can hit safely and land and open the door and step out. Try to avoid landing in schools, departments, and killing innocent people on the ground. Don't try to turn back to the airport. I think that's the guy in Salt Lake City, Crichton. I think he was trying to save his aircraft is my best guess. He tried to turn around. He tried to make it back. So many of us want to not scratch our airplanes, and we try to turn around. Turning around is last priority. Forget the airplane. We'll buy another one. Forget the airplane. Go straight ahead. Don't stall the airplane. And if you're in a helicopter with a tail, rear engine fire, this is a 2-engine helicopter. If you have a fire back there, it's a big deal. I'd have that thing on the ground in about 35 seconds from that altitude. I'm not a helicopter pilot, but if I was, that's what I would be doing. Let's take a look at the graphic that I've prepared that explains this. So here comes the helicopter launching off this, and he has his problem immediately after takeoff. Let's listen.
Pompano Tower, BS9. Tower. We just had an engine failure. We're going to require priority for a runway, please. We're declaring an emergency.
He declared an emergency, and now he's going to ask for clear to land.
Clear land, runway 6, BS9.
He's still thinking clear to land and that he needs to get permission. He's an emergency aircraft, and now his priority is on getting this airplane back to the airport. I'm going to put the graphic up in here and show you exactly right now what amount of terrain he was over. Here it is right here. This is what he was over. Where he made his turn here, he had plenty of highway, golf courses, open areas. He's in a helicopter. He could have landed anywhere. He's trying to get it back to the airport. Now the airplane, the helicopter just keeps on flying here towards the airport. The actual footage here is of the helicopter tail boom. It doesn't burn it off. It just gets so hot that it melts and loses structural integrity. Here's a better picture of what he was over, and now I'm going to show you right here where he actually ended up. This is a Google Earth picture of where he ended up right here. The helicopter fell directly into the roof of this apartment complex right here and killed one person on the ground. One person on the helicopter got killed, one person on the ground. Now here's some news footage showing you the exact same apartment complex right here. This is helicopter footage of the helicopter crash going right in there and shows you the exact same area here. So the helicopter had numerous opportunities to put this down. Look at the hole that it made in this roof. I mean, it's amazing that only one person was killed. Ample opportunity to land this anywhere, like anywhere, and he didn't do it. So I hope that makes it a little bit more clear. You can go back and review that and see the tower communication, where he was when he started his problem. When he started his left-hand turn, that's when he realized he had his engine problem. I'm not sure if he ever knew the extent of the fire that he had back there, because he probably couldn't see how much fire and smoke he was actually trailing from his seat. You normally fly these things from the right seat, so I really don't know. Let's take a look at this footage. This is a C-23, a Debonair that took off, Debonair or maybe Sundowner took off from North or South Carolina the other day. I'll put it up here on the graphic so you can see it. This is a actual engine failure after takeoff, and this is a classic footage of what it looks like. Both of these guys survived initially. They both later died just a few hours later in the hospital. Our deepest respects and condolences to these two men who lost their lives in this crash, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. If you lose the engine, these guys never lowered the nose. They never lowered the nose, and this airplane hit hard. This wing has a very good stall characteristic to it. It actually mushed most of the way down. I don't see that it ever really full stalled and spun, in which case it would have been killed instantly, but it hit the ground hard, and your response to this is engine failure. Lower the nose, get on best glide, add full flaps, go straight ahead. He had plenty of fields around him, is what the ironic thing is here. This is so bad. Let's take a look at this video footage right here. So here you can see the airplane, obviously loss of thrust, and it's fluttering. This is surveillance camera video. Here it is, and here it hits the ground right here. And I want to go back and review the United hard landing. Everyone's talked about that. The airplane that they broke in half, 767. My information is, and this is my opinion only, but the person in the right seat of that 7-6 for United landing at Houston the other day, it's been a little while ago, they're going to scrap that entire airplane. This person in the right seat was a flight attendant, upgraded to pilot position, very low time, very low experience, and was very excessive on OE. OE is operational experience. You typically get, as a new hire, you get about 30 flight hours operational experience. You're flying with a line check airman. My information says that this person was at around 130 to 140 hours of OE. Could not pass a line check because of basic flying skills. All that is subjective. That's my opinion. That's what I've heard. We'll know better when the factual comes out on all that. I'm not sure if all the pertinent information is ever going to be released, but there is a disadvantage to hiring people who are truly not pilots and chose other careers first and swapped over. Not that you can't do it, but I would say after you get above 100 hours of OE, if you still can't land the airplane, this might not be working out. And we have to, as an industry, I think our management has to put those checks in place to find out if a person there's got to be a limit. If you can't land the airplane after 100 hours of OE, we probably need to send you back to doing something else. And I wish that wasn't true. But just remember, not everyone is cut out for flying, just like I am not cut out to be a brain surgeon. And that goes to show because all of my previous brain surgeries have failed miserably. I'm not good at it. And now I realize that. Last week, I talked a little bit about Comair 5191. That's the airplane that took off from Lexington, Kentucky. The anniversary was a week ago today. It was like the 17th anniversary. I put together a tape so you could hear some stuff here. I made a mistake in last week's video. I did finally find the transcript of where they had interviewed the tower operator. However, in the tower transcript where they interviewed the guy, they never asked him about the phone. They never asked him to sign anything. This is the document that they asked him to sign and fax in, which he finally did from the Holiday Inn. The whole thing makes no sense to me. And the bottom line here is that there were 3 airplanes that morning. 2 of them had already taxied out and were gone ahead of Comair. The tower operator had his back to Comair 5191 as it left. But the main thing here is I want you to look at some of this documentation where he's referencing being tired. He's only gotten a few hours sleep in the last 24 hours sleep, and in the last 24 hours, he's in the tower cab trying to find ways to stay awake. He's reading, which is an extracurricular activity. Maybe it's good for you. I don't think a tower operator ought to be able to read extraneous. I think they ought to be paying attention to their job, even if they are working a mid and what's going on here. He's also listening to the radio. He admits in his transcript, in his interview about the radio, and I want you to listen to this transcript. This is the actual ATC tower cab transcript that I was able to get and transcribe here for you so you could hear it for yourself. This is, now it's condensed. I sliced and diced this so we don't have to listen to the whole thing. This is the last known tower cab communication with Comair 5191. I want you to listen to the number of times that when this guy is talking, he's either talking to flow control on his phone or he's making a transmission talking to the aircraft. Listen to the radio. The radio is so loud you can almost hear what song is playing, and I'll eventually figure that out. I'm going to figure out what song is playing in the background eventually. Listen to this. So a tragic case all the way around. I apologize. The tower cab interview is in the stack. It was buried in a completely different section. I did read the whole thing. I'm even more disgusted now that I've read the whole thing. Very few changes occurred because of this accident. And I think it's a two-way street. Pilots need to be diligent in their jobs. Tower control operators, you should be diligent in yours and do your job. Even if you're working solo, alone, mid, in the middle of the night, you still ought to be paying attention, especially if you're launching 3 jets going to different destinations. Your main objective here is to look out the tower cab and make sure that everybody is taxiing correctly, going to the correct runway, holding short, and when you give somebody a clearance for takeoff, you need to verify that they're on the correct runway before they add the power. And if not, when they add the power, you've still got the opportunity from the tower to tell them to stop, and the whole thing would have stopped. Very sad occasion here. 49 individuals lost their lives. At some point, I'll play the interview with the surviving FO. The co-pilot FO actually survived this, and he did offer an interview a few years ago. I have a copy of that, but I'm not going to play it at this time. That's Comair 5191, and I apologize for the oversight in last week's digging through the docket. That interview is in there. The problem is I'm even more not happy after I have found it and read the whole thing and gone through it. So here's the transcript of Comair 191. There's 3 aircraft involved. I want you to listen to the radio several times. You can hear the radio blaring in the background of the control operator. The very first transmission comes from Comair 191 with a clearance request. He calls the control tower operator and asks for his clearance. Here it is.
Good morning, Comair 191 is going to Atlanta with Alpha.
Comair 191, Lexington clearance clear to Atlanta Airport via Bowling Green, Erlin 2 arrival, maintain 6,000. Expect flight level 270, 10 minutes after departure. Departure is 120.75, squawk 6641.
You can clearly hear the radio in the background. Here comes the readback, and he makes the readback in error.
Okay, you got Bowling Green, missed the other part, 6,000, 20.75, 6641.
Comair 191 is to Erlin 2, Echo Romeo, Lima, India, November 2 arrival.
Erlin 2, appreciate it, Comair 191.
For the second time, you can hear the radio blaring in the background. Now here comes the release. Listen carefully. You can hear the radio in the background.
Lexington Skyway 6819 to O'Hare, please.
Release.
CD.
Now Comair 191 is ready to push. The other 2 airplanes are already out ahead of it, but Comair 191 is going to request ready to push right now.
Ground Comair 191, just give you a heads up on a push.
Comair 191, advisor of taxi.
Roger.
So this tell them advise ready to taxi. Now Comair 191 is going to call them and tell them they are ready.
Comair 191 is ready to taxi, we have Alpha.
Comair 191, taxi to runway 22, altimeter 3000, and the winds are 2008.
3000, taxi 22, Comair 191.
Eagle flight 882, flight runway 80, clear takeoff.
Clear takeoff, runway heading, Eagle flight 882.
Sky 6819, radar contact, attitude leaving.
You're 2100 for 6,000, 6819.
Go 6819, climb and maintain 10,000, 10,000, join Victor 171, and resume on home navigation.
I have 10,000, we'll join Victor 171, Skywest 6819.
All right, so here comes your clearance release from the tower operator.
About 10,000, he's right, of course, for weather, about a 300 heading.
Scout 6819, previous question. Lexington, Comair 191 to Atlanta, over Bowling Green.
Release.
CD. Lex, Sector Lex, Press, Scout 6819.
Yes, sir.
300 heading, get around some weather. City.
So you've heard the radio in the background a lot of times. The 3 airplanes involved are Comair 191 that's taxiing out last. Eagle 882 is cleared for takeoff. At the same time, Skywest 6819 is out of 2100 for 6,000 feet. 191 is the last airplane, and he is gone and out of his hair. Let's listen to the takeoff clearance issued to Comair 191. This is the last and final fatal words from Comair 191.
Trail Leisure, Comair 121, ready to go.
Comair 191, Lexington Tower, fly runway heading, cliff takeoff.
Runway heading, cliff takeoff 191.
At that point, the tower operator, we're not sure what he was doing, but he had his back to the Comair 191. He never saw it. He had numerous opportunities to stop that airplane. He could have easily seen him make the wrong turn, and he could have easily seen him rolling down a darkened runway if he had only looked. Now let's take a look at August, what we have so far. I'm going to put it up here on the screen for you to look at. I've already covered a lot of these. Let me give you the ones that I have not covered and some of the things that we have not mentioned in the past. This ag accident out here that I did not talk about, this was the one, and I'll show it to you right here. This is November 804 Alpha Alpha. That's an AT-802. Austin Scrogman is only 26. He's on his 2nd season. His wreckage was found in a different field than what he was supposed to be spraying, and the people that saw him crash saw him doing crazy low-level aerobatics right before the accident. I don't know, but it doesn't sound good. I know an ag plane empty would be a lot of fun. A turbine ag plane would be a lot of fun to have some great low-level screwing around with, but I think that's probably all that happened on this one. Let's take a look at the next one. The next one I want to talk about is the 210. That's the storm penetration. We've already talked about that. Another aerobatics one, November 6161. That's the intentional aerobatics. Greg Bierman, age 62. The Bell 47 hit power lines, 2 of them in a row. The Petrel hit in North Carolina, hit the power lines about 2 weeks ago today. The PA 28161, that's November 9855 Sierra. That's the Warrior. The wing fell off of it. We talked about that. The 6-shooter is a powered parachute up in Minnesota. I don't have any information on that except that there was a grandfather, Denny Pekacek, age 73, that died in that. The Piper J5A, that's a shoulder harness fatal, I do believe. Bruce Flannery, age 78. From everything I can tell and everybody I've talked to so far, that airplane landed, flipped over, hit something, somehow got out of control and upside down, and he hit his head is all I can tell. The Beech C23, the Sundowner, that's a loss of thrust on takeoff. Dan Witt, 60 years old, and his passenger lost their lives in that. The C99, that's the training flight. We've already talked about that. Jim Kegel, age 69. And then the Impossible Turn, that is Crichton King, age 50, out in Salt Lake City. Last week, we've already talked about that. The one that I forgot, or actually did not have access to last week, was 6709 Quebec. I'm going to put the graphic up here. This is a Beech 36, a turbocharged Beech, basically a 36 Bonanza. Took off for a long flight going south. I'm going to put the track up here, and the news reports said that it's found about 17 miles northwest of this city. Well, if you look on Google Earth, 17 miles northwest of that is on a direct line with where they were trying to go. And that's about the elevation over where the peaks stick up. Somehow, they did not clear the peaks. I think this is inadvertent IMC into the top of the train. I don't know if they'll ever recover the airplane and the bodies out of that. I have not heard yet. That's going to be a very difficult recovery. 2 people on board that. Totally unnecessary. Lots and lots of options that day. I know that when they went to look for them, the weather was so bad that the state of Alaska resources had to turn back and would not even go out and venture a search the afternoon that they were missing from their last known reported point. So the weather was a factor. Might have been one of those situations where it's better to delay and avoid, spend another night, and wait for weather to get better tomorrow before we try this. IMC in a single-engine airplane over that kind of terrain in Alaska is kind of asking for it, and I'd recommend you like Alaska, spend another night in Alaska, take another afternoon to go fishing and do something else. Wait until the weather. You've already got everything stacked against you by being in a single-engine piston airplane over that kind of terrain. You better do things a little bit different if you want to stay alive and stay off of Dan's DTSB report. Now we're down to the EC135. That's a Eurocopter. I've already showed the graphic, and we've already talked about that. The interesting thing here is that the pilot and the other front seater survived this thing. I'm not sure how, but they were pictured on video climbing off the roof, so they're okay. And then the last 2 here, I have very little information on. This is an R22 up in New Jersey, I believe. Just the other day, this is yesterday, 2 days ago maybe, November 2356 Mike of the R22 up in New Jersey. And then right after that, November 50FU is a glider. I think it was like a powered glider out in Colorado. I got the pictures of it. I'll show it to you here. This is definitely stall spin. Hit nose first, and I'm not sure who the guy was, and did not make it. That's it for August. I'm going to get on and give you the information that you want here because of all you guys totally, absolutely, totally into the drama and all this kind of stuff on this. It's not my thing. I would rather simply do accidents and do my thing and report on what I want to do to try to help keep you alive. However, I do take the opportunity to answer your questions and show you the counter opposing view. So if you want to see that, that's coming next. All right, so here's the information I'm going to give you about AOPA. I have a hypothesis here. This has to do with what happened with me on my legal situation in Texas. A default judgment. I'm going to put this up on the screen here so you can see it. This clearly shows from my attorney in Texas that filed with the court system I'm entitled to a trial because there was never a process server sent. These people had my home address, my home phone number. They had all the information that they needed. However, they intentionally sent a process server to my hangar so that I could not be aware of it. They had the opportunity to inform me, but they did not. This was by design. I'm putting this on the screen so you can look at it. Now, my question here is that how did AOPA, the day that this verdict was rendered on August 16th, and they had a judgment for $1.2 million, how did AOPA already have an article written? They had the documents pulled. Your managing electronic editor at AOPA, Jim, he already had everything done, and I've got him on recording saying that he already has the docket. He already has the entire docket. He's already read the entire case file on the day that he calls me within a few hours of having the final judgment in hand. This looks like it was pre-planned to me. My question to Jim is, who put you up to this? Who put you up to this? I called Jim back the other day and asked him this question. I want to know, Jim, first of all, is this news? Does this information help the member, or is this something you're trying to do against Dan? I want to know. Let's listen to this phone call with Jim at AOPA.
AOPA, Jim Moore.
Jim Moore, this is Dan Greider. How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Wanted to visit with you for just a minute, if you got a minute.
I don't really. I'm on deadline, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It'll only take 30 seconds here. I just want to ask you about the connection between Dan Millican and Mark Baker. And I want to ask you, did Mark Baker specifically ask you to write that in advance? Because on the phone, you told me that you already had the case docket downloaded before it ever even came out. So how did you know to start working on that, Jim?
I'm sorry, Dan. I don't have time to talk to you today.
Well, you're going to have to. You're on a recorded line. I'm going to play this. It's not going to sound very good. I'm going to read something. So Jim doesn't want to answer that question. I sent him a text and asked him to either confirm or deny. Specifically, I said, if this is not true, if my idea is not true, and Mark Baker is not in cahoots with Dan Millican, just tell me that. Just say so and send me a response back. AOPA has not responded to my emails or text. Jim at AOPA has not specifically responded to any text. I simply asked him to deny that Mark Baker gave him a direct order to prepare this docket, prepare this article, make this phone call, and have this all ready to go. If that's not true, I'll take that. Just send me a text back simply and tell me it's not true. Here's a screen grab from my phone. I sent this to Jim, direct to Jim's cell number, and it got delivered. I think there's funny business going on. The whole thing has to do with AOPA making unethical money. To me, in my opinion, this is an ethics. This is a conflict of interest. AOPA's relationship with Assured Partners makes a direct line, a direct correlation profit on the increasingly hard market for aviation insurance. The harder the market is, the more the premiums go up, the more AOPA makes, is what my opinion is. I've asked AOPA to clarify that. They will not. They have some kind of relationship with Assured Partners. The more premiums go up, the bigger the check AOPA gets. I think that's a complete conflict of interest. I'd like to know your opinion. That's the thing that I'm after here. AOPA is supposed to be a safety organization interested in our safety and reducing fatal accidents. I think having a financial scheme in place, especially where the CEO is that concerned about his own salary and his own retirement, and to give himself $1.6 million per year in salary, he's very interested in increasing all revenues from all angles. I think this is a classic case of conflict of interest, and I'm looking forward to your opinion on all of this. I've prepared a short little sketch to kind of illustrate all that. Let's play that right now. I kind of sliced and diced this, but I hope you get the idea of what it is that I'm talking about here. In the relationship between Dan Millican, who specifically, in my opinion, probably had direct conversation with Mark Baker in order to give him the information so that AOPA could have this ready. Take a look at this.
I'm going to take out the emotion, no speculation, and just report the facts and what is being said. President and CEO of AOPA, Mark Baker. Mark, thanks.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm going to take out the emotion, no speculation, and we need to go to the big man himself, President and CEO of AOPA, Mark Baker. Mark, thanks. And the latest aviation news that is setting the social media groups ablaze.
What is the mission of AOPA?
It really has started out in 1939. We still are aligned with that, which is about safety.
Oh my goodness. My texts and emails have been blowing up.
Which is about safety.
And the latest aviation news that is setting the social media groups ablaze. I think we need to go to the top. I think we need to go to the top. I think we need to go to the top. I think we need to go to the top. I think we need to go to the top. I think we need to go to the top.
Сбили, бабахнуло в 2 раза, взорвалось, падает. Ты посмотри, падает. Бабахнет. Куда упал? Вон тут куски летят. Где упал? Пошел какой. А там он куски летят еще. Смотри, какой клуб. Поднимается. Меня аж трясет. Где это? Вон, около фермы. Горим. Не пойму, у фермы нет.
Это крылья, думаешь?
Вон там движок.
Ты думаешь, второй тоже мертвый? На один весь разорванный, а второй тоже? 1795 написано на крыле.
So we got to get out of here. I'm going to get this video up and on the air. If you can hear right now, this is the banjo music, and I'm putting this on here. This is me on banjo on this track. Check this out. And I hope that this video plays for you completely without ads, without interruption. That's the way it's supposed to be. If you'd like to support me in my efforts, I'm a one-man show. I don't have advertising. I don't have Patreon. I don't have sponsors. I don't have any of that kind of thing. Your $1 or $2 contribution towards my travel and expenses helps. Not required if you'd like to. It's electronic and it helps a lot. I can oftentimes take in $200 or $300 per video, and whatever is appropriate for you is totally fine. Here's the ways that you can do that: Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. Once again, I appreciate it. I'm going to get this thing up and on the air. I hope you have a great holiday weekend. I hope you'll take a few moments to remember those fallen heroes who went on before us to try to protect all of our freedoms, not just our freedom to fly, but our freedom as Americans to enjoy freedom itself. For my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, Dan Grider, Probable Cause.